And we're back on The Forest at Night. I'm your host, Sarah Allen Reed, and we have something a little different for you tonight. In the studio right now, we have Joey. Let's start introducing you.
Hello.
Yep, say the name. Say your
Hey, my
name.
name is Joey R. Poole, and we're here tonight to talk about It Came from the Swamps, a cryptid anthology from Malarkey Books, with some writers who are in the anthology, which Sarah will introduce to us right now.
All right, we have Ed Karshner, J.S. McQueen, Meagan Lucas, and T.A. Simonelli. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Yeah.
Alrighty, so Joey, let's start this off with you. Give me a bit of background on the anthology. Obviously, this is primarily an extreme music and heavy metal radio show, so I usually don't interview authors and books, but quite frankly, I can't imagine my audience would not be interested in this, because it's literally spooky things that go bump in the night, and this is literally the forest at night, so it fits in perfectly. But from your perspective, walk me through what was going on in your head when you decided that you wanted to make a cryptid anthology. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, the short version of that is this: I've always been sort of fascinated by cryptids. As a good little skeptic, I hate anything that just smacks of pseudoscience. But I make an exception for that for anything to do with cryptids, urban legends, things that may or may not exist. And as I'm sure everyone in our audience knows, there's a whole lot of bullshit that whole world has. But the idea that there just might be something out there that we haven't yet gotten any hard evidence of beyond grainy, Zapruder-like video, and just all that stuff sort of existing at the very edges of our imagination was something that's always fascinated me. So I put out the call for this anthology, Malarkey Books, and Alan Good. Let's give Alan a shout out. We're good enough to publish it for us, or to offer to publish it for us. And when I put out the original call, I asked for cryptid-themed stories that leaned more toward crime fiction and grit lit rather than straight up horror and science fiction. Although, as the original call made clear, we love those things, and of course, genre is fluid. And I was really impressed by the range of stories that we got from the writers, including those who are with us here tonight.
All right. So when you mention originally wanting to approach this as a crime literature piece, and I'm going to direct this to the majority of the authors here rather than Joey himself, how'd you work that in? What angles did you take with that?
To be totally honest, I didn't read that far into the submission requirements.
That's fair. That's valid.
No,
I never learned to read. You good?
Like, yeah. No, cool. Cool. Monsters? I can write monsters. And so I just wrote about a very spooky, creepy sort of mermaid story because, like, to me, like, I've always felt that, like, we always get a lot of stories about, like, Bigfoot and Mothman and all of that, and my brain was just like, you know what? You know, mermaids are, like, around. People have been, like, thinking they've seen them, like, weird little cryptids out in the ocean for, like, hundreds of years. Why not? And so I kind of just shot my shot.
So you could have had crime-fighting mermaids.
I know, and now I'm regretting it because I'm just like, dang, I could have revised this story to have crime-fighting mermaids in it, and that would have been way cooler, actually.
There's an underground shell market, and we've got to bust it.
The lesson here is we new anthology, crime-fighting mermaids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't write my story around any kind of crime mystery, but a crime happens in it, so that's fitting.
I mean, crime kicks ass. So
Not that one. Not the crime that's in my story. Does not kick ass.
It's not a good crime. It's not a
some
justifiable
crime kicks ass. We could have had an underground shell market, but J.S. McQueen over here throwing some hard, terrible, horrible, no good, very bad crime, which is not the same thing.
In an anthology full of, as you might imagine, fairly dark goings on, I will say that JS's story is perhaps one of the darker ones. She wrote about a cryptid which I'd never heard of, which is, I'll let you take the reins on this, but a ghost herd of horses. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
They actually don't. They don't explain it as a ghost herd of horses. Some people think it's ghost horses. I'm from a little hole in Appalachia, where cryptids are just they're just all over the place. I think like 15 or 16 different stories I grew up hearing, but this one I found because I went looking for them. And it's a place you can go on the county line. Allegedly, you can go there at a certain time of night. You can hear a herd of horses moving through.
Cool.
And the horses committed a murder.
People. That's what I love about that cryptid. There's nothing sinister about them.
They're just around.
They're just around, and until people started. My favorite Appalachian cryptid is Satan, because any story with any mystery, you give my people enough time, they'll make it about Satan somehow. So they started going oh, there's a pale horse and it's death, and then there's a goat that's Satan, and then there's a shack with a pentagram on the front. Satanists are in the valley, and I'm like. Can you just let the spooky mystery horses be? Does it have to be safe?
Yeah, I mean,
No, but if you're in Appalachia, we love Satan here.
We do love Satan.
We just love talking about him and making him make deals with people, and that's just his our whole deal.
I would say I'm bored of Satan. I'm gonna be honest.
That's fair. He's getting a little trite. Satan's getting a little boring.
He comes around once a week and he just smokes all of my marijuana and leaves.
Fucking rude.
I ain't even gonna lie. I did not expect it to take this turn when I invited y'all on an extreme music radio show, but this fits perfectly. We do the black metal shit around here. We all about that. All right. So we also have, aside from T.A. Simonelli and J.S. McQueen, who you've been hearing from, Ed Karshner and Meagan Lucas in the chat. Would you like to talk a bit about your stories, about what inspired you, maybe your favorite Satan biscuit recipes, if you have any, for when Satan comes on December 25th to give us all presents?
I saw the call because I've been a fan of Joey's work. And I noticed that the last couple of stories in his collection are, cryptid stories, and I think the rest of our work, his and mine, shares some of the same sort of crime and southern gritlit elements. And I was deep in novel revisions with my agent and feeling fairly burnt out. So when I saw Joey's call, I got kind of excited about doing something new and perhaps weird for me. And I grew up in Northern Ontario on an island in the channel between Lake Huron and Lake Superior. And so I grew up with the cryptid, Mishipeshu, who is similar to the Loch Ness Monster. And I just really wanted to explore that idea of mixing crime or noir with sort of the folklore of a cryptid where we sort of all accept that that cryptid exists, and it's not a strange being, but everybody knows is around, and how that would sort of play out in a crime world. And so that's how the monster beneath kind of came to be.
One of the things I really like about a lot of the stories in this collection is what's on display in Meagan's story, which is you pronounced it Mishipeshu?
Mishipeshu.
Mishipeshu. I have been pronouncing that incorrectly in my head the entire time.
Well, I'm not sure that's how it's said either. That's just how I grew up with it. So.
One of the things that I wrote about in the introduction of this book is the way that in Meagan's story, this is also the case in several other stories too, is that we have this very real human sins. There's a very human crime that happens in Meagan's story, and the Mishipeshu sort of gets blamed for it, and the legend is sort of floating in the background. That's also the case in a lot of these stories. Ed also is from Appalachia. I forget exactly where, but his story also features an Appalachian legend of the Bootsman, and there's a lot of interplay between his story, I think, and Meagan's, even though they're from largely different places. They're very similar in that there's this sort of hard-boiled detective element, and then we have the cryptid creature sort of lurking in the background as well.
Well, you probably would not be surprised to know that Ed and I are writing partners, and so
Really?
we help each other a lot with our work. I probably shouldn't have admitted that, Ed. I'm sorry, but
Oh, that's okay. I don't have a problem with it. Yeah, so Meagan is a big help because I think she is more intuitive. I tend to do, because my day job, I'm an academic, so I tend to do a lot of research, and then I get so bogged down in that I have a hard time dredging up the more fictional elements. So Meagan is always good at getting me to sort of get out of my own way. So.
It's always good to have a good cohort of writers around you, I think, to kind of like, if nothing else, motivate you via shame, right? Because it's like, hey, I really want to read that thing that we were talking about. When are you working on that?
It's always good to have a friend who will knock you upside the fucking head if you don't get to the goddamn drawing table.
I mean, I think all art is inherently collaborative anyway. It's good to embrace that. It feels healthier.
Writers especially need someone to tell them when they're full of it every now and then, I believe, as well.
Oh, absolutely. Someone please tell me to shut the fuck up. Like, or be like, hey, you know this thing you wrote? It's real campy. You need to chill.
In my line of work, my day job is as a cartoonist. There's an old adage that say it takes 2 people to finish a watercolor or finish a page of comics. One to paint the fucking thing, and the other to knock him upside of the head with a brick when he's about to go too far.
Yeah.
It's not inaccurate.
I wouldn't. It's not inaccurate. I wouldn't use a brick because that could be fatal.
Well, I mean, if you just tap it the right way. I mean, I suppose. What would you use?
Do a gentle bapping with a brick.
What would you recommend?
What would I recommend? A sword.
That's not fatal?
I think that's going in the opposite direction here.
No,
The wrong way.
Some people have friends that are very vulnerable to swords, I see.
I mean, I know that if I let any of my friends hit me with a sword to get me to write more, I would not survive.
See, this is why I don't bother having friends. I never have to answer these questions.
Well,
It's
I'm
so
just built different, I guess.
You are?
fair. Hanging out in the Appalachians with the full fucking, set of plate armor all the time.
Oh, I don't wear armor. My skull's just that thick.
Honestly, mood. So, talking about murder and weapons and things that can kill you if you get hit by them, let's talk about the cryptids y'all chose. Megan, I know what you chose already because I drew yours for the cover art for this anthology. So let's start with you. Which cryptid did you choose, and why did you choose to write about them?
Well, I chose Mishipeshu, who is similar to the Loch Ness Monster. She's, well, I consider her female, but she's an Anishinaabe, Ojibwe sort of legend that's in northern Ontario where I grew up. And because I grew up on an island, water, usually the temperature of water and the weather surrounding water were really a big part of my life growing. And so I liked the idea of getting to play with that, even though I now actually also live in Appalachia like everybody else on your show here tonight. But yeah, I just really wanted to play with the idea of the unseen, but sort of an unseen that everybody accepts exists. I think that sort of plays really nicely into some of the more southern ideas of religion that I like to play with in my regular writing. But since this was kind of a jaunt for me, a challenge that Joey put out there, I wanted to do something not southern, something from home.
Hell yeah. Ed, what about you? What'd you write about, and why did you choose it?
I grew up in southeastern Ohio, in Appalachia, Ohio, and it's an area that is largely German settled, Pennsylvania German. So my people came into southeastern Ohio in the late 1700s, but they were all but they had already been in Berks County, PA, for a long time. So one of the things that I've always been interested in is that there's sort of that generic idea of Appalachia being all about the Scots-Irish, but as my mom will say, we never knew any Scottish people. Everybody was German, So a lot of the stories that we have where I grew up really are rooted or centered around the folklore of the Pennsylvania Dutch country. So I wrote about the Bootsman, who is a scarecrow that can be magically brought to life, and usually by a hex worker. And in my story, it's a granny woman, and I play with that idea a lot in my writing. But I like the idea. The main character in the story is a folklorist. He's actually a main character in a novel that I'm working on. But he's from that area. He moved away, and now he's moved back. And I like this idea of being an insider and an outsider at the same time. So the Bootsman is this imported cryptid who then is kind of like a golem figure. I think I've mentioned that when Joey had asked for us to explain what our character was. So he protects the land. So when the people are no longer able to protect the land, then you get a Bootsman to do it for you, and he's just a very powerful and scary figure. I mean, the animated scarecrow is a scary idea to begin with, but that's what I wrote about there. And actually, Sarah, there are some Nazis in my story.
Please tell me they get punched.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think most of them wind up dead before the story starts, and another one, yeah. You gotta the Nazis get what's coming to them. But that's another idea that I can't that I've wrestled with in some of my other work is just our grandfathers, they all fought the Nazis, and now you got guys walking around with the Iron Cross tattoo on their neck. I don't get it. So I'm trying to understand this idea of lost futures. I think Mark Fisher, who's a writer or was a writer, he wrote about that idea. So yeah.
I wanted to ask Ed too, as I was reading his story. Have you ever seen Pumpkinhead? As a big B-movie horror fan, your story reminded me of that movie from '89 or '88.
You know what? No, I haven't, Joey. But I'll tell you what is funny though. The show that scared the hell out of me when I was a kid was a made-for-TV movie called The Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. Have you ever seen that one?
I don't think so.
You can, I think you can get it on Amazon. I bought the DVD, but it is a show that it was made for a TV like 81, I think, 81, 82 maybe. But it is a scary movie for a TV movie. But yeah, so I think that was an influence on me, that movie.
Just freaked your bean right out, dang.
Well, I didn't see the movie from the time I was like 11 years old until about 2 years ago. And when I sat down to watch it, it was amazing, like how many of, like the scenes were part of like my nightly nightmares. So I'd forgotten that those were like that scene was in a movie, and then I was watching. It's like, oh my God, this movie has been haunting me since I was 11 years old.
I'm not even going to lie, and I know this is a bit of a tangent, but again, I did the cover art illustration for this book, full disclosure, but I also did chapter lettering for every single title in the book, which means I had to handwrite out in my, particular calligraphic script or what have you, the title to every single story. I mispronounced the name of your story, Ed, in my head the entire time. I thought it was the Buttsman.
Yeah.
This is the first time hearing about it. I thought it was Buttsman, dog.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, no, it's German, so it's Butz. Das Butz. The ragged...
The Boots Man.
Ragged man.
Okay. I always thought Das Boots meant the boot.
Well, B-U-T-Z is like ragged or worn out, and then man. So like the scarecrow is a worn out man.
Okay. That does check out. That makes sense. So, we got 2 left. We're gonna start with you, TA. What did you write about, and why'd you write about it?
Well, like I mentioned, I picked mermaids because, frankly, they're fascinating, right? Because they're this, like, simulacrum of human things, but they're not really actually human. They are more fish than man, in that, like, they can breathe and live underwater, and they have the fish tail, or, in the case of mine, are more shark-like in that they've been in captivity and have adapted to a smaller environment where they have to fight and scrap for resources a little bit more, which I kind of got inspiration for that from like the thing about wolves. So wolves in captivity that's the only time that they do the like alpha beta dynamic. In like an actual like in the wild situation, they don't have a hierarchy in that sort of way, and so like the idea that an animal, once it has been taken from its natural environment and put into a captive environment, having to adapt and change its entire, not just like way that it interacts with others of its species, but in some cases, the like physical adaptations that they have to adapt to survive in an environment that is inherently toxic to them. It just was really fascinating to me, and I was like, yeah, okay, so we have got these crazy, like, essentially like feral animals that are being held in a way that they should not be held in. How do I adapt that sort of like thought philosophy into a longer narrative about what it is to be sort of like trapped into the cycles that your family establishes for you? And it was just something that I was like very interested in playing around with. I actually wrote this story a few years ago and re-edited it for submission when I saw the call for submissions for this anthology. And yeah, it just was it felt like extremely fitting for it to be something that we consider beautiful to turn into something horrible when adapted into a sort of family generational narrative.
TA's story actually made me break one of the rules that I had going into this. I said that I was only going to have one story each for each cryptid, or else it was going to be filled with Sasquatch stories. There's another set of mermaids. There's another set of mermaids, or one other mermaid in Jaq Evans' story. She's not with us tonight. So I ended up breaking that rule because both of those stories were just so damn good. And like TA's story sort of uses this mermaid-like creature to explore like generational baggage, whereas Jack's story is very much about predatory privilege. And in her story, the mermaid, which ends up being very real and very terrifying, much like TA's mermaids, kind of takes a back seat then to the truly monstrous in this story is this wealthy, entitled senator who is the real antagonist and the real villain in the story. So I ended up having two mermaid stories in this anthology, breaking my own rule.
I mean, you could argue that aren't the wealthy actually the worst cryptid of our generation?
I mean, I don't know what the hell Jeff Bezos is, but you can't look at me and tell me that's a person.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that's an alien.
Yeah, their experiences are so different from ours, you could basically classify them as a separate species.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing that I didn't get any lizard people conspiracy stories, but I don't think I had any at all in the submissions.
It's
wild.
It's probably for the best, given the general anti-Semitic undertones of that particular trope. But I'm pretty sure that's probably why you didn't get any. Because I don't think Malarkey's audience tends toward that kind of nonsense, thankfully, which is why I hang out with them. If you ever have a chance, by the way, and I do want to plug this because I am actually pretty good friends with everyone who runs Malarkey Books. If you ever have a chance, please go out of your way and pick up everything they have ever published ever. They have a subscription service and are just wonderful dudes. So definitely go check out Malarkey Books, who are the publishers of this fine anthology. So. And then finally, we have J.S. McQueen. We already know you got ghost horsies. Why'd you pick ghost horsies?
I picked ghost horsies. Well, I hooked onto that cryptid. I went hunting for cryptids to capture one and put it into a short story. I was immediately attracted to that one because it's kind of like the place is the cryptid. Directly. And I thought the harmless nature of the cryptid, the fact that there's not really it doesn't really hurt anybody, and it's not really even it's just a very psychological cryptid, right? Its entire thing is just based in the mystery of a sound. And I thought that would be a really good opportunity to dive into how these things delve into our they come from our psychology, our need to explain things about concepts that we would otherwise observe because mundane explanations for them don't satisfy our need for emotional resonance.
Fair.
The story's about it's about a little girl who's not having a good time being alive, and the horses sort of echo her psychological state.
That's fair. I mean, Lord knows if I did not have a good time as a child, and honestly, if I could dredge up some ghost horses to be my best friends, I would do it. That would kick ass.
Who wouldn't?
I mean, really. It's you gotta ask yourself who's the best friend you can have as a kid, and the answer is ghost horsies.
Ghost horsies.
That's good friends right there. Alrighty, so we gotta tie this back to music somehow, or I'm gonna get more angry emails and pipe bombs in my mailbox than I normally do for this show. So, We're gonna go down the line, and I want you all to pick one track. If you had to soundtrack your story, what are we playing? What are we playing? Ed, we'll start with you.
Oh, well, I'm just gonna get really cheesy. Just how about "Don't Fear the Reaper"? There we go.
Hell yeah. The original Blue Oyster Cult version?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Good choice. JS, what do you got?
I would choose Nightmares by Josh Ritter.
Okay. Megan?
Gordon Lightfoot's The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Hell yeah.
One of the lines from the story about how Lake Superior doesn't give up her dead is directly from that song.
There you go, some deep knowledge for you. And TA.
Oh, okay. You know what? It's a rough one.
You can do it, I believe in you.
You know what? I'm gonna do Bad Bad Things by AJJ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And JR, if you could soundtrack the entire anthology, what do you got?
I'd go with some Link Ray. It came from the swamp, and I want some sort of swamp boogie here.
Swamp Rock.
Yeah. By the way,
We got
should have called the collection "They Came from the Mountains." Apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah, it was a really unintentional thread running through all these stories. A lot of the stories were set in Appalachia, and then even some of the writers who didn't set their stories in Appalachia are living in Appalachia. Yeah, so TA, you're in Asheville.
Asheville, North Carolina. Yep.
Okay, that's not too far from me, real close to Megan. But so she's in Appalachia writing about these Hanyo. Is that how you pronounce? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's Hanyo, but the thing
Hanyo.
about the title is actually that's not the name of the mermaid or the creature. Hanyo are a Korean group of female-only divers that dive for pearls, and it's a whole cultural thing where there's this weird matriarchal society around them, and I super recommend researching them because they're so interesting. But it just, the reason I picked that title is because of the familial matriarchal thread that runs through the story. But yeah, the mermaids themselves, they're just mermaids, but it was just very interesting, because I had just read about them and was like, oh, this is really cool. I'm gonna name my story after them.
Hell yeah.
And we obviously Megan's in Appalachia writing about this avian cryptid lore. And then the only time that Sasquatch actually shows up in the collection is in a story from the UK. So
That's
it was
funny.
also unexpected. John Doyle's story, Men in the Woods, was one of the ones that really got to me. I got a little bit weepy reading it, actually, and he uses the hunt for the even more elusive British Bigfoot to explore a father's grief in the story, and it ended up being kind of humorous and poignant at the same time. That is the only time that actual Bigfoot Sasquatch shows up in the entire collection.
So here's what we do about that, all right? We knock Alan around enough that him and the crew bring me back to draw another cover art, and then they bring you all back to make It Came from the Mountains. I think that
Yes.
let's do that. Round 2. Alrighty. Any last thoughts? Any last requests? Any last shit posts? Any last cheesecake recipes? What do you got?
Just in general?
Yeah. What do you got? Give me your famous.
Oh,
cheese-
we're opening it up.
Yeah. Free for all.
Hell yeah.
I told you I was here to encourage violence and chaos as a host.
It's time for violence.
You're goddamn right.
It's time.
Yes. What do you got?
For violence is upon us.
Violence
No,
and
no more
cheesecake
just plugging
recipes.
books. Murder's the real art.
Well, by far the most violent story in the collection is actually one that's unexpected. It's Zachariah Johnson's Cliffs of Blood, which has to do with murderous jackalopes.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty sure that if a story is called Cliffs of Blood, I kind of expect it to be the most violent of the collection.
Jackalopes are such, like, chill cryptids, though, that it's like, oh, you picked jackalopes to write about the Cliffs of Blood.
This is my
And chill
story
is not
about
even-
happy puppies. It's called Cliffs of Blood.
Good.
That's beautiful.
I think we should find rabbits more menacing.
I mean, they're a little terrifying. Okay, like, rabbits are whatever, but hares are, like, actually a separate species and are terrifying.
Yeah, they're the big ass ones.
Yes, yeah.
Worst curse word of the podcast.
They're like
Oh, yeah.
they're like puppy-sized. See, I didn't completely forget what jackalopes were. I was right. They're puppy-sized rabbits. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I know what words are.
There's a lot of fluids in this collection, by the way. I need to read it. I need to give it a good read.
Tell me
like a
about
good
the
read.
fluids.
I'm noticing like a kind of fluid zeitgeist. There's two stories about mermaids.
Love fluids. What are you talking about? Fluids are great.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I'm just pointing it out. I'm saying there's lots of fluids. If you like fluids, you probably like. And the cover art has water.
I'm drinking
The
fluids right
cover
now.
art
What you
story
got?
It's like a water spirit. And then there's two mermaid stories, and then there's Cliffs of Blood as fluids.
Yeah, blood's a fluid. Mhm.
My story has fluids involved. There's fluids. It was a very fluid collection. Lots of fluids. Anybody else have anything to say about the fluids?
I personally think that more short story collections should have fluids, and I'm advocating for that openly and actively right now, that the next 3 short stories I write will include fluids in some way.
We demand the fluids.
I'm gonna plug something, since
Do
we're
it.
just talking about stuff.
Do it.
I run a small indie press in Asheville, North Carolina, and we also had done a cryptid anthology, I think last year. So if you like cryptid stories and want to read more cryptid stories, you can find me on the internet at zinesfromatown.com. And we did this anthology. It's primarily focused on like weird news writing in that the title of the zine is Bat Boy is My Son.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we did that, and there's a lot of very fun stories, including a personal anecdote from my friend wherein he was personally mistaken to be the Jersey Devil, which is very good.
Is he from Jersey? Is that where the confusion comes from?
Yes, he was going to college and had a very bad night where he got very drunk, fell down a hill, got covered in mud, wandered into somebody's campsite who was camping out in the woods, and yeah, they thought he was the Jersey Devil, screamed, "It's the Jersey Devil!" and ran away into the night screaming.
That is fantastic.
It's beautiful. It's a very fun little story, and I was very glad to be able to be involved in publishing it. But yeah, so if you guys are interested in more sort of cryptid stories, feel free to snag a copy. It's not very expensive. I think it's like $2. So yeah, and it'd be a fun time for you and the family.
Hell yeah. Anybody else got anything to plug? Tell the people to buy your things, please. Don't all jump in at once now. Come on.
I have nothing to plug, unfortunately.
Okay.
This is my first publication ever. I've made a Twitter
Well then
for this.
make more
That's
publications so you can come back on the show.
I'm trying. It
Do
takes
it.
a lot of time to write a book.
Just sit there, drink your fluids, and write.
I will drink that. Like that, actually.
Drink all the fluids you can, and then write your book. sitting on the toilet, I guess.
Thirsty for blood.
Hydrate before you dihydrate.
Hydrate before you hydrate.
So I have a novel. It's called Songbirds and Stray Dogs, and it's been out for a couple of years, and you can pick it up anywhere, really, I guess, just Google. But if y'all want to cross your fingers for me, my agent has my new novel. It's called Soft Animals, and it's out on submission right now.
Hell yeah.
With a lot of big fives, so that's pretty crazy. But I also think that you should buy Joey Poole's collection. I have always been here before because it has cryptids and gritlit and noir and crime. And it's not like he's here to talk about that.
Those are all very good things.
I'm upset that you beat me to plugging Joey Poole's story collection. If I was gonna do that, it would have been funny.
I think you should do it again, just for kicks, right?
Story collection, Joey Poole, he's the editor of this anthology. I have always been here, available from Cowboy Jamboree Press.
Joey Poole, do you have anything to say about Joey Poole's anthology?
Well, just to bring it back to music here, it's named after a Rocky Erickson song from his work, Satanist Period. I Have Always Been Here Before is the title of the collection and the first story in it.
Nice.
Where can they buy it from?
It's available from Cowboy Jamboree Press.
That's a great name for a press.
That is fantastic. Ed, do you have anything to plug? Anything to tell the people to purchase and spend their hard-earned fluids on? I mean, money.
I have an e-short that's from Mountain Gap Books. That's I think you can get it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it's called the Salt Creek Valley Monkey Dog, and it's set in the Northwest Territory in the late 1700s, and it's a complete full of shit story about my 5th great grandfather fighting monsters with Tecumseh. So it's don't take it seriously, but it's hilarious and fun, and there's fluids.
Good.
Perfect.
We're already.
That's what we're all about. We care more about fluids than about character development.
I agree. I think fluids might actually be making a comeback in narrative.
We're bringing it back.
Comeback.
All right.
Yes, I'm tired of seeing characters go through emotionally resonating arcs of change when they go through adversity. I want fluids.
See,
I want more erotica. That's fine. Go for it.
This is why noir is clearly the best genre, and Joey had a good point, because you know what has fluids? Liquor. You know what genre has like people drinking way too much liquor? Noir. I'm just saying.
Correct.
Best genre. All right.
I hadn't thought about this until right now, but I'm kind of upset that I didn't get any cryptid erotica stories for this anthology. So maybe that's the direction that It Came from the Mountain should go.
Oh, perfect! I've got a story just for that.
Now that's got to be the
I'm on
third
it.
one. The first one was It Came from the Swamp. The second one is It Came from the Mountains. The third one is just It's Coming.
Or just It Came.
Just gotta do it just straight ahead. You gotta do it right. Location, semen. That's how it works.
I gotta say, It Came from the Mountains. That's a reach. It came from the mountains to where? I hit with that.
Into Satan.
Into Satan.
All over Satan.
Just right on his back.
Yep.
Yep.
All
He
right.
lost that bet with Johnny.
There's a single man who keeps Satan out of the world by constantly spraying him down back into hell.
It puts the lotion on its skin,
He hoses him down.
or it goes to hell again.
When he stops, that's when.
That's the end of the world. That's Armageddon right there.
That's Armageddon. So.
All right, and
I made folklore. I invented folklore just now.
I loved workshopping this story with you.
alrighty. So with that in mind, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. This has been Ed Karshner, Joey Poole, J.S. McQueen, Meagan Lucas, and T.A. Simonelli. Thank you all so much for coming on the show.
It was a pleasure.
Follow me on Twitter. I have 17 followers. I need more followers if I'm gonna survive.
Yeah, if
What's your
if
Twitter,
I
what's your
die,
Twitter handle, JS?
it's because
So it's at JS McQueen.
It's very succinct.
Yeah. Hate Twitter.
Alrighty.
I also hate Twitter so much.
I hate it so much.
I don't talk enough shit to be on Twitter, which is impressive because I talk a lot of fucking shit.
I simply like post 5 times in a row one day and then don't look at my Twitter for 3 months. It's fine.
As God herself intended. Alright, thank you all so much for stopping to the show. Actually, just real quick before we go, Ed Karshner, your Twitter is...
Believe it or not, it's at Ed Karshner.
Cool.
I don't believe it.
Joey?
Yeah,
Joey, you are... Joey?
Mine is just Joey R. Poole, also very inventive.
Alright, and with the most inventive Twitter username on this show right now, Megan.
Meagan Lucas without any vowels, so MGNLCS.
Maximum creativity over here.
See, okay, but then again, mine is at DRMY Mongoose.
I lied,
this
this
is the same.
one wins.
Yeah, so Dreamy Mongoose, if that helps you remember, that is me.
Alright, and of course we are at TFAN_radio. I almost said at the Forest at Night, which would be incredibly wrong. At TFAN_radio. Follow us on Twitter. Figure out what we're playing this week and next week and what we have coming down the pipe. I am at Sarah Allen Reed, and I'll see you all next week on Radio Dark Tunnel.